What's good, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Goats of Growth. Today, I have Kyle Natichioni, who is the Vice President of Sales at Reveleer, I believe focusing on new customer acquisition. Reveleer is, and you can learn more about this in a moment when I ask him, but is a company which is a value-based care enablement partner for provider and health plan organizations. Kyle, welcome to the Goats of Growth.
Jay, thanks for having me today. Excited to be here. Excited to talk a little bit about what we're doing.
Yeah, and just to sort of peel back the onion a little bit, or a layer of the onion. So Kyle and I met surreptitiously, I guess you can say, or serendipitously, I'll say, not surreptitiously, serendipitously, when he was with a past guest of the Goats of Growth, Steve Trevelini, and we all live north of Boston, Massachusetts, and they happen to be at a coffee shop, a Starbucks, that I frequent often when I'm not recording podcasts, so I don't have a lot of meetings. I like to leave my house and go to coffee shops and work. And I was happy I did that day because I saw Steve in person, I believe for the second time, and I was able to meet Kyle. And I subsequently, of course, took advantage of that and asked him to be a guest on my podcast. So here we are.
Jay, thanks for having me. Right, like North Shore for the last 10 or so years. And before that, actually grew up, born and raised as a year-round resident on Martha's Vineyard. So excited to be here, talk about what Reveleer is doing, and talk a little bit about how we're taking the organization to the next level.
Absolutely. So let's just go there. Tell me a little bit about Revelair and the scope of your responsibilities there as a VP of Sales.
Yeah. So Reveleer is a super exciting AI health tech company that's focused on building out the value-based care platform to allow both payers and providers to really get in front of this transition to value-based care that the industry is making. So we've built out some really amazing AI-driven workflow technologies to really help organizations better understand who the individual is to more effectively operate their risk adjustment and quality workflows. We've got an amazing net new logo team that I'm leading across the country. We've got 6 enterprise executives on my team. And last year as an organization, we did what very few organizations can do. We went from 50 to over 100 million in ARR. And we are continuing that growth curve this year.
Let's just go there for a moment. 50 to 100 million in ARR. And I've noticed that people always talk about track records of success. And looking at your LinkedIn profile, it seems like you've had repeated, which is the definition, I guess, of track record successes, where you've been able to grow exponentially in rather short periods of time. Tell me a little bit about that. You've been at Revelair now for a year and a half. I want to go back to your first weeks and months there. Talk to me about when you first got there, the state of the sales organization, specifically, I guess, the team that you're leading, and then what were some of the opportunities that you identified where you thought you could really make an impact and make a difference for them?
Yeah, this was a much more mature organization, right? And I did that very purposefully as I had been a serial entrepreneur looking at growing companies from 5 to 25 million. I'd done that stage 5 times before I joined Reveleer. And I was looking for an organization that was more mature in terms of revenue. And we had an amazing leadership team, not only from a sales perspective, but from our entire C-suite that had really laid the foundation, right? I don't want to take credit for the foundation that was already built. Jay Ackerman and Brent Costello, who are my leaders on a growth stage, had set this foundation and had really done some of the heavy lifting to help us get to that $50 million organization, which is a huge accomplishment, right? And I was looking to be part of that rocket ship and bring on some of those skills that I had learned at smaller organizations to help advance the enterprise sales team. And as I think about advancing the enterprise sales team here at Reveleer, one of the things that I look at is the talent that we have and how we're up-leveling, bringing on talent that the organization hasn't had before. We have had a number of really successful reps. How do you take that model and that success that we've seen and then repeat it with new hires that are going to help us take to the next level? And what I've seen be really successful here is we have built a customer first culture that really compensates high performing sales reps in a way that I've almost never seen before. We, for the last 2 years, have had a 7-figure earner on the enterprise side, right? And being able to tell that story of their individual success is a catapult to helping us recruit and find talent that up levels the organization,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you want to create a calling card for your sales team that points to success of other individual enterprise regional vice presidents, as we term it, and show a new candidate that they can have similar success. So not
Mm-hmm.
only did we have that high 7-figure earner that has just blazed new trails for the organization, we also last year had our rookie of the year that led our team in new logos, in deals closed, right? So you have these two amazing success stories that allow you to go recruit from some of our industry leaders in our space and bring in the best from their teams to augment what we've already built and take that amazing foundation of how we got to 50 million and then use that infused talent to help us get to the next level. So my team looks very different this year, right? Is we've got 6 enterprise sales executives. They are bringing amazing experience to the table. They're up leveling the way that we present to customers. They're up leveling the way that we solution for customers, right? Because they've been there and done it and been the best at other organizations. So that success allows us to take it to the next level.
Success begets success, right?
Got
So,
it.
so, so let me ask you this then, more broadly, because you certainly are very quick, which I appreciate, to give credit to the folks that were there before you, but then also the people that are great salespeople. It sounds like they're right, the great regional vice presidents, I think you called them. Just more overall, when you look at your career and the success that you've had, was that where you'd put it? In other words, recruiting and hiring talented folks? And if so, tell me a little bit more about that in terms of how you seek the talent, and then how you actually choose, because each organization is different, I guess, and maybe there's some commonalities across all of them in terms of the traits that you're looking for. But just tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it's a good question, right? And for me, a lot of the foundation was built very, very early on in my life. Is I grew up in entrepreneurial ventures where my dad was always starting different businesses, right? And we were the Nantucket Nectar juice guys on Martha's Vineyard, delivering 20, 30-pound cases to every restaurant, every convenience store, every grocery store on the island. And you learn how to operate a business by living in it. And with family ventures, right, every single week is make or break. So I got schooled in an entrepreneurial setting where I watched businesses fold, I watched businesses grow, right? And I have the scars from that experience that helps me form sort of the foundation of my business acumen. And then I wanted to take that where like I'd watched businesses go under, and I took some of those learnings and I said, I really want to make sure that I'm advancing my own education. And I then took that to Babson, which is a leader as a business school, to better understand how to grow successful businesses. Uh, and from that, I knew that my schooling wasn't done. I went to Accenture, learned how to be a management consultant, worked with Google, worked with Verizon to understand how the best companies in the world are growing their organizations. And then I've applied it to these Series A through D companies, right? And as you said, like the talent is the growth engine. I was helping build talent recruiting programs at Accenture, and I've done that at every one of the organizations I've been at because it's an accelerant to the growth. You bring on amazing people and you get out of their way, amazing things happen, right? And I continue to see that be true. And that's been a constant over the last 2 decades of my career.
What's amazing to you? Define that. When you say amazing, what comes to mind for some of the talent that you've recruited?
Yeah, that's a good question because it looks different at every organization,
Yeah.
right? And it looks different at every step of the revenue growth stage,
Hmm.
right? Is as you're starting out earlier companies, you're looking for track records of accomplishment, achievement that aren't just within their job, right? Is as you're looking to hire new grads, right? Like how are they not only showing amazing competency in their schoolwork, but are they leaders on campus, right? Have they shown mastery and skills outside of their schoolwork that are going to allow them to multitask, meet the demands of a job, right? But as you think about maturing that organization, maturing your hiring model, it is we're today at Reveleer, we're looking for continued years of meeting quota in really tough environments. We're looking for individuals that not only can learn a new discipline, but actually can help solution for their customers. And that ability to go almost as far as a solution architect has really been one of the unlocks for our most successful sales executives here at Reveleer because they gain instant credibility with their buyers, right? And because they're a source of truth or an expert that the buyer can keep going back to learn from, to better understand the industry, to better understand why our solution may be able to help them, uh, whether it be improved documentation, right? Whether it be better care for their members. That type of consulting mindset is is something that we've seen be amazingly successful for each one of our RVPs.
I want to go back to something you were mentioning about yourself, which is, you grew up in an entrepreneurial environment. You saw businesses fold. You saw businesses succeed. And the word that comes to mind for me as I'm listening to you is grit, right? And I wonder how much that plays in some of the way that you evaluate talent before coming on board, right? Because you mentioned them, looking for people who are able to sell through a tough environment and that type of thing. So tell me about that, and how do you vet for that, I guess, right? Because obviously a lot of things aren't necessarily easily vettable, but if that's a word, but how have you been able to do that? Because I think that's a big trick.
I love the concept of grit, and right, like I didn't know what it was right, like before Angela Duckworth really made that term so famous, right? But I can tell you as I was reading her book, right, like I went back and I remember working my first 100-hour week with my dad as he was doing that distribution business on Martha's Vineyard. Right, I was like, where does he go for 100+ hours? Like, what does he like? How are you away from home working for that amount of time? So I took a calendar, the old school calendar, right, and I just shadowed him for the entire week. And I did a week where we did like 104 hours that week. You did 16, 17-hour days, right? And you go, this concept of grit isn't something that, right, like it isn't something that you get in one week. It's something that's forged over time because of hardships, because of obstacles that you are forced to overcome, right? Many times, right, like you don't get you don't get asked, right, like do you want to do something hard? You're put in that situation and you're forced to figure it out, right? But living these businesses, right, like where whether it was the distribution company, later we had a restaurant, and every single week you're trying to make payroll, being able to apply that to a high growth series A or series D company, right, like bringing that mindset has been a competitive advantage for me, right? Because I want to make sure that every week we're moving the ball forward as much as we can, right? So I go back to those lessons that I learned of, like, did I make the company better this week, right? And what did myself and my team do to accomplish that? If we're doing that week over week and we're putting brick on brick on brick, right? Like that's where the company's have seen success, right? In some weeks, it doesn't feel like you've moved the ball forward at all. And then you have those weeks that come 3, 6 months later where you're like, all that hard work that I did 2, 3, 4 quarters ago, now they're being recognized. Now other people can see that big enterprise sales meeting was the unlock, right? That intro that we grinded for, that one of my enterprise sales reps had 35 outreaches because he knew that they were a perfect fit for our solution. And finally, on the 35th time, they were like, geez, I'll take the call, right? Those are the unlock moments, right? Like that no one sees. No one saw the 34 emails that came before that 35th one, right? That's the hard work that, right, like embodies this concept of grit. So I do try to look for it, and we're trying to look for it in different ways of like, where did you overcome true hardship? And one of the questions I ask in every one of our interview processes is, Jay, tell me about a time where you received some really hard coaching. What did you do about it? How does that impact what you're doing today? And that question is such a nuanced one where the reps that actually seek out coaching and use it to improve the way that they approach their job, right? It's transparent. It comes through. Hey, this is how I debrief after every prospect interaction.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for this type of feedback. Right? Like, I've improved the way that I approach this because this was so challenging. And the folks that really feel like they've already mastered this enterprise sales game, right? Like you see that too, where they're like, oh, I can't bring an example. And you're like, oh, that's great. That's what I'm looking for in these interviews.
Another word that comes to mind as well when you say that is resiliency, right? Because I think it's one thing to grit something out. And to your point, I love the way you put that. It's like it's something that is sort of built over time, kind of like a callus, if you will, right? It's like you keep picking up the weights, and every day, and then more than more, your hands are gonna get more and more calloused, and then you're not gonna feel it as much, right? That's a whole nother thing. But then there's the setback there, and then it's like it's the willingness to continue to do something hard, knowing that it's going to be hard, and doing it anyways. But then there's the resilient piece as well, where it's the bounce back, right? It's almost like, okay, like the business did fold. Are we going to quit? Are we going to stop? Are we going to keep going? Right. And to your point about the coaching, the tough coaching, sometimes, and we talked before we hit record, you were obviously a big time tennis player growing up in high school and college. And then all of a sudden it's like, you have hard coaching. It's like, are you going to tuck your tail between the legs and just go back to the locker room and not come out anymore? Or are you going to keep fighting? So tell me a little bit about that and how that plays a role in all of it.
Right. There's hopefully you're learning every day, right? And as an athlete, right, like tennis is a one-on-one or doubles as 2-on-2 sport, right? And as you look at the professional levels, the best players in the world are winning about 50% of their matches, right? So every single match, right, you're going to have a winner or a loser. And if you don't evolve and advance after a loss, right, you're not going to be progressing through the levels. So very, very early on, after a win or a loss, I took a journal. I did the journal activity of like, what should I have gotten better at in this match, right? And that started to be part of the DNA of how do I steal things from players that I really respected, right? When you got your ass absolutely kicked, right? Like, what are you taking from that, right? How are you going to evolve and make sure that you're better the next time, right? It's a really good proxy for 2025 and trying to maintain a sales team and trying to be a sales leader in this environment, right? We've got new AI tools that are coming out every single day that can make us more effective, but also can make your competition more effective, right? And you've got to be empowering your team with these tools. You've got to be educating them. You've got to be keeping yourself up to speed on them, right? And those proxies and those learnings, you need to fold into everything that you're doing, or right, like you're going to fall behind. And so it was a great training ground, and it's something that I try to make sure that we are really doing as an enterprise sales team. And one of the great values that my CRO put in place was the ability to learn from everything, right? Like we debrief everything. We debrief every customer call, every customer demo, right? And that value, right, like is something that I really got behind, right? And I'm really trying to make sure that the team absorbs into their DNA.
You mentioned hire great people and get out of their way. What does that look like in real life, so to speak? When you say get out of their way, what obviously it's not literally just going to sit back and do nothing. What is it? What is it? What does it look like? What does that mean when you say that?
Yeah, right. Is I try to over index on their onboarding, their training, and make sure that I am present, right? And I am there for mock calls. I am there to review what we've learned from recent interactions. We are uh, we are talking about case studies. I'm challenging them to help them understand who our customer base is early on, to make sure that they have the tools to be successful afterwards,
Mm-hmm.
right? And last year, I took one of our performers that was near the bottom of our leaderboard, right, and got them to lead the organization in new logos, right? This year, in less than 2 quarters, I've taken a new sales rep that was one of the best at one of our competitors, and in a quarter, he closed his first deal, which was a record for our organization, and now has a few $1 million in pipeline that we're trying to bring in here in his second quarter. Right. So you're trying to make sure that these sales reps not only are given the tools, but are ramping quickly. And in the enterprise game, one or two enterprise wins at a 6-figure, 7-figure ACV mark, right, can be the confidence fuel that they need to go be the most successful. And we saw that with our rookie of the year last year, that one of my peers did an amazing job managing, setting up for success, right? And then we saw that this year again with one of our new hires, where we are smart enough to say, what's the profile and how do we go pick off the right people from competitors to really make sure that we are well positioned.
You mentioned making sure they have the right tools, and I know that obviously, part of the component, and you mentioned a couple times, is the technology to make sure that they're,
Yeah.
they're equipped, so to speak. Are you, I assume that when in coaching and training, you're using technology to do this as well, right? Like, how much time are you spending on that part of it, where you're doing mock calls or going over objection handling and those kind of things?
It's pivotal, and
Yeah.
one of our cheat codes has been the conversational AI tool that records every one of our customer interactions, every one of our prospect interactions, right? That library is something that has accelerated the growth for each one of our enterprise sales reps,
Hmm.
right? And as I was onboarding, right, like I remember 5 a.m. on the bike, on the treadmill, just listening to our number one sales rep, their calls, right? How do they handle this, right? And being able to have that library of every prospect and customer interaction has been something that's really been an accelerant,
Hmm.
right? And our organization doesn't just think of it as a foundational tool. It's something that our CEO is constantly listening to understand how our reps are going to market, how our customer success managers are interacting with their customers. It's a tool that we believe in across the organization.
Hmm.
And that buy-in is really different, right? And it is something that has propelled us forward because we're constantly hearing the voice of the customer. Whereas other organizations where I brought that same technology in, right, it hasn't been adopted the same way, and that growth stagnated. Where this has been an accelerant, right? Like we
Hmm.
talk about feedback from these calls every single day,
Hmm.
and to get real feedback, right? Like our CEO's driving, he's in California, so he's driving in California. He's a couple hours behind us on the East Coast here. He's like, I got feedback for you. I just wanted to drop these 4 things in, right? Like, is such an amazing advantage to have someone who's grown this organization over the last 12 years say, like, I care enough to listen to every one of your calls. Or like, that is an amazing cultural example. It's what one of the reasons why I believe in Reveleer is that starts at the top and goes through every single person, right? Like we don't, there's no exception to recording calls, and it makes us better, but it also makes everything 100% transparent to say, we're going to put everything on film, right? And if you're not ready to put things on film, you've got to get better as an individual.
Culture of accountability right there.
You got it. You got it.
Yeah.
And yeah, boy, can it be scary when the CEO is the first one responding to that call as soon as the recording goes live and launches, right? Remember having a deal, we're working a deal for the quarter. They asked a couple questions, and within 15 minutes, the CEO had sent me the answers to those questions and go, yes, this is an organization that really cares about the outcomes and the results that we're delivering.
Yeah, for sure. Let me take you back a little bit and go back to a $5 million company for a moment, who doesn't necessarily have the cachet, so to speak, that Revelair might when it comes to pulling top people from other companies. Tell me about that. In other words, let's play hypothetical for a moment, little case study, if you will. I'm saying, hey, I got a $5 million company that needs help. Somebody like you can come in and really help them. Where do you begin? What's the first thing that you're going to do or look at or evaluate to see whether or not this is something that you can help them, and then how do you go? How would you go about doing that?
Yeah, it's a very different problem, Jay. Right, like
Mm-hmm.
it really is, and the level of talent that you can attract at $5 million is different than at $100 million,
Mm-hmm.
right? The comp plan is different. The earning potential is different, right? So as you start to create that profile, you're not going to be able to get the same enterprise rep with decades of track record in your space to come on and take a flyer on the $5 million organization, right? It just doesn't exist. You've got to start to play up the resources and assets that you have. You're playing up the equity story. You're playing up the ability to build and be really pivotal to the growth story. So you start to build a different profile of, hey, what's attractive about this role? Hey, you're going to help author the sales playbook with me, right? Like you're actually going to be in the trenches writing this story, and that's going to be a launching pad for your career. So you're really trying to position things differently. And then you're looking at a different profile. You're looking at, or like, does this person have some of the core skills, right? Like, have they sold before, right? Like, have they sold enterprise? What are early indicators that they can be successful in this role? Because you're not going to have the luxury of saying, yep, you've got 2 decades of amazing experience selling exactly to this person. And come on, you're looking at a smaller base, a smaller OTE. So you're then needing to shape that. And one of the things that we did to see if the candidates had the horsepower that we were looking for was we ran them through a presentation, and we saw them present, right, our solution, doing the research from the website, doing the research from the market to see how they'd actually perform in our environment with a new company, and use that as a litmus test to see if they could then come on and continue to learn and grow through that space. And that was that was one of the really pivotal things that we did. And it also was a test to see their grit, right? To give them that exercise in the interview process and see if they were willing to do it, right? And see if they were willing to do the hard work of designing a presentation or improving a presentation. Whereas when you have a more mature company, you're getting those materials, right? You have a product marketing team, a function that is built out, that is supporting you, right? Those earlier stage companies, product marketing didn't exist yet. Wasn't even a glimmer in someone's eye. So you're thinking like, how does the sales leader, the executive team, start to build out that story?
And then where do you go from there? So you're evaluating the team. I'm assuming you're looking at, okay, what's the skill level here? Do we need to upskill? And maybe it's not even, maybe it's upskill with the people that you have, and talking about the aforementioned technology that we just talked about in terms of coaching and training, that type of stuff. Like what happens next, right? Like in other words, the vision is to get from, let's say, 5 to 25 million
Yeah.
over the course, which I think you've done over the course of, I think it was what, 3 years or something like that,
Yeah.
right? I think that's what I was looking at. Tell me about that, like going back there, like what were you able to do looking back to say, yep, that worked, maybe that didn't work, to, sort of help people that are maybe at that stage right now.
Yeah. The You should always be testing, right? And you should always be willing to hire on profiles that are different
Hmm.
to see what works, right? Is where I'll go back to Conants, where I did my first growth stage company over 3 years, and we went from 5 to 25 million, right? It evolved from a very, very small team that had figured out success in that model to then looking at the leaders in the industry, and we were able to recruit one away from one of the leaders in the industry.
Hmm.
And then we used a referral program, right? And we demonstrated that that rep could be successful to go hire 3 or 4 more from that organization, right? And then we were able to start to look at other peers to that leading competitor to bring them on. And all of a sudden, you have a team that is deeply skilled in that portion of healthcare, that has deep experience and relationships across the healthcare spectrum, right? And that team is then up leveling themselves, right?
Hmm.
So it does become some natural competition in the enterprise space to say, like, then how are you doing after you've established this team? But it came from one hire, and we then were continuing to ask for, like, who's the best salesperson that you've worked with? How do we
Hmm.
get them here?
Hmm.
Right? And we use that to build a candidate pipeline that really expanded beyond just that one. And it ended up being a really diverse team. It ended up being a team that had quite a bit of experience, right? And it ended up being a really successful exit because you were able to find that scale and find those folks that had been there, done that, and were used to selling those type of deals to the in this case the biggest health systems in the country that we were targeting.
What about playbook building? Where does that come in? Because when you say test everything, in other words, I'm assuming you're testing messaging, you're testing, I don't know, all emails, call scripts, maybe over objection handling. Like, tell me about that. And does it live somewhere? In other words, are you writing it, you know, in a Google Doc? Like, how do you sort of begin to formulate that?
It has to live somewhere,
Yeah.
right? Like, and each company needs a different playbook, right?
Mm.
And one of the things that should be a red flag to anyone hiring a sales leader is that when a sales leader comes into interview, they say, I have a playbook that's going to work for your organization.
Yeah.
Every playbook that I've written, authored, been a part of is unique to that organization and is learned over time and refined,
Mm.
right? So whether it's Confluence, whether it's SharePoint, the vehicle that contains your playbook is not as important as documenting it, continuing to educate and enable on it, right? And then refining as the organization gets more advanced.
Mm. Yeah, for sure, for sure. And when you're writing the playbook, because when you're writing the playbook, you're writing it as you're in it, right? In other words, and you might look back and tweak some things, or maybe whatever, right? You're adjusting, right? So I guess the question is in real time, when do you know, or how do you know to dead something where, like, what, this messaging isn't working? Maybe we're talking to maybe the persona is a miss. In other words, this isn't the right person. Like, how do you know, or even how much data do you need to have before you say, you know what, let's make a different decision here?
I love this question. And it it comes from the foundation of, have you built a revenue operations infrastructure to allow you to measure any of it, right? And
Yeah.
having that technology infrastructure is the foundation to allowing you to scale, right? And very, very early on, right? I don't know how or why, but I started loving the sales operations function. And I'm now a converted HubSpot guru. Is we built the foundational information in the CRM to allow us to start to measure these. right? And the organizations that excel, embrace the RevOps foundation and are continuing to invest and pour into that foundation to see what's working and be able to use data to drive the decisions, right? The
Mm.
organizations that I've been a part of that haven't grown quite as fast, right, don't believe in that and really didn't invest in it,
Mm.
right? And that dichotomy of, are you investing in this? Do you believe in this function of whether you call it RevOps, sales ops, is such a uh, is such a difference for an organization that's trying to take it to the next level, right? Because without that foundation, you are guessing, right? You're using gut to make these decisions as opposed to
So,
data.
so let me just ask you this, because I'm taking it for, I've been taking it for granted, I guess, that, let's just call it SaaS companies, often, high growth companies have a rev ops or some sort of sales ops or marketing ops function. Are you saying you've been part of companies who didn't necessarily believe or embrace that?
Oh, absolutely,
Wow.
absolutely.
Interesting. And I'm just out of curiosity, I guess, what did they say, or what do you think was the philosophy behind not embracing
Yeah,
RevOps?
right. It comes from leaders that don't have a background in go to market, don't have a background in sales, your typical engineering leaders that right, don't appreciate how hard it is to sell in any environment, right? And that has been really the difference is uh, being in the healthcare world. There are a number of CEOs that are brilliant in their disciplines that really haven't needed to exercise the go to market muscle, right? And have been successful doing that, right? So then trying to educate them on why that's important and why it's needed, right, is becomes a huge challenge for the revenue leader, right? And that's a challenge you shouldn't have. And all the other challenges of figuring out your ideal customer profile, making sure that you have scalable pricing, making sure that you're winning the right type of logos, right? Then needing to convince the remainder of the C-suite that we should be investing in this RevOps arm isn't a conversation that you need to have on top of all the challenges that you have as a sales or go-to-market leader.
Certainly a red flag for any go-to-market leader who perhaps during the interview process um, comes to that revelation that the company doesn't necessarily believe in it. Not necessarily a opportunity that a go-to-market leader would want to take on unless they're open-minded to the go-to-market leader, spearheading that, I guess,
It, it hopefully, right, like, and if any of the revenue leaders that are looking for their next gig as they listen to this, right, like, one of my key learnings, and this was from falling on my face, right, was that I wanted to create a profile of the company that I wanted to be a part of, right, and I wanted to see that stability. Before we signed on, Jay and I talked about kids, and I've got 7-year-old boy and twin girls that are 5, right? So my family's really young. I needed stability in a sales leadership role. So in moving away from the $5 to $25 million companies, I was looking for a $50 million company that had amazing sales leadership already in place, where I wasn't going to need to then create a sales culture, right? Because I've learned the hard way through a number of different experiences that as much as I want the sales culture, if no one else is embracing it within the leadership team, it makes it almost impossible to create that in your sales reps, your RevOps team, your marketing team, all feel that, right? They know if they're not getting the support from the C-suite. So in my profiling, I was looking for that CEO that really had an appreciation for sales. And our current one is a former global CRO, right? And touts at our leading industry conferences were like, that we have an amazing president's club, right? And he's like, I can't tell you how many CEOs I run into that don't give my enterprise teams quotas. And he's like, how do you operate a company without giving your enterprise teams quotas?
Wow.
Right. So health tech is behind tech in general.
Hmm.
And there's a number of health tech companies out there that just hope that their enterprise sales rep sells something because of how big our deal sizes are. But it's a calling card when you have quotas, right? We got to go to Cabo, and our resort had George Kittle, the entire 49ers, and Draymond Green staying with us just because it was right after the All-Star game and it was the NFL offseason. We're like, we picked a President's Club trip that people wanted to go to, right? And that's something I am able to tell in interviews to say, like, yeah, our President's Club trip is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. This year we're headed to the Four Seasons in Costa Rica. Like, that's a calling card for new reps that are like, hey, do you have a sales culture? Yes, absolutely. Right. And as soon as you hit your number, there's accelerators. Right. And we do $60,000 worth of bonuses, right? Just to get new logo targets, just to hit your Q1 and your Q2 incentives. These are all thought out to get the best sellers in our marketplace to Reveleer. And I'm thankful that I didn't need to go create that coming into this environment. That's something that our entire leadership team was behind and was sponsoring so that we could go get talent. We could go recruit the best. We could go keep the best, right? One of the things that we did as a sales leadership team this year is we didn't change the comp plan at all. We improved it in 2 spots. So we went from 50 to 100 million and made the comp plan richer.
I love it.
Right? That's when you say, I don't want to mess with my top talent.
Yeah.
I want them to stay. I want them to say, I'm never leaving.
Yeah.
Right? That's why you look for the sales culture. And that's why I did that profiling exercise of like, who do I think can actually go 50 to 100 million? Do they have the right investments in place? Are they thinking about the sales motion the right way? Right? And I got to compare 2 amazing offers against one another that were both $50 million companies saying they wanted to go to 100 million in the same health tech space. Right? And one had established that sales culture and had amazing sales leadership. Right? And it was like so clear of how much they'd done to develop that competency where it was like, wow, that's a real opportunity. And it's something that I want to run towards.
That's a great way to end it, and a real motivator for you too as well, right? A real motivator to get over there. So great way to end that portion, I should say, of this interview, this podcast interview, because now we have the bonus section where I ask you 5 questions. I call it the rapid fire 5. Ask you 5 questions, give me 5 answers, and then I'll ask you a bonus question. I think I'll try to find a bonus question that one of the previous guests asked, and then I'll ask you if you can think of one for the next guest. All ready for that?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. So the first question is, what motivates you?
Family and certainly money. Family and money all day, every day.
The 2 go hand in hand, right? Got to keep that roof over that family's head. What's name a big goal you have right now, and when would you like to accomplish it?
Oh, a big goal. I'm looking at the goals. I post my goals up behind my monitor. So I want to bring on 15 new customer logos this year. We did 10 as an organization last year. I'm trying to do 15 on the payer side for my side. So I'm trying to make sure that we increase that by 50% in terms of new logos.
When you say this year, you meaning 2025?
2025, yeah.
All right. I got to ask, where are you right now?
Right now, good question. We're at 5.
5. Okay, cool. All right. What's your most preferred way to learn new information to stay sharp?
Right now, it's been YouTube, or it's definitely been YouTube and podcasts recently.
All right, there you go. What's your favorite? Oh, so I think maybe this may not have been written. I could have changed this in the automation. I keep forgetting to do this. So this 4th question, you might not have seen if you've even read the follow-up emails, but I'll ask it anyways because it's a great question that came from one of my guests that I've started to use, which is, who's your favorite character of all time?
Favorite character of all time?
Mm-hmm. Could be from any genre.
I like this one, Jay. Captain America jumps jumps to mind, right?
Yeah,
I like the scrawny kid from Brooklyn that was always counted out, that weighed 100 pounds soaking wet.
yes.
That one jumps.
It's fantastic. That's a good one for sure. Question number 5. What's your favorite thing to do when you aren't working?
So as a hobby, I've done 94 Spartan or obstacle races all over the world. So training for that is fun. I have built an American Ninja Warrior rig behind me in the garage, and I have the home gym with salt bike, concept rower, rogue squat rack. Just open up the garage and wheel out everything. All my neighbors think I'm nuts.
That brings you back to something you said earlier in the interview, and you said, "Hey, nobody says, hey, do you want to do something hard?" I think 94 Spartan races and all that stuff that you just, I think that's literally the definition of I want to go do something hard. I mean, you don't walk into that in one of those races or walk into your garage and say and wheel all that stuff in and say this is going to be easy, right?
The Spartan races are certainly certifiable. The Killington race is 15 to 18 miles, 10,000 feet of elevation, 50 obstacles. And I was running as an elite runner against world-class runners back when I was really, really going after it, right? And we're doing this multi-hour race, and they'd never done this before, but they gave us 2 70-pound sandbags and said, go for a mile up the hill, around the hill. Remember seeing on my watch that it took me 40 minutes to get these 2 sandbags a mile. And then we still had like 6 miles left in this course. Ended up taking me 8 hours that day to finish the race. My wife had thought I had died somewhere on the course. I didn't die, but that was one of the hardest days I've ever had.
Wow. Talk about resiliency and grit right there. My goodness. And by the way, just as an aside, those are the anecdotes, frankly, that, we all look for, right? When we're interviewing sales leaders or when you're interviewing individual contributors, it's like, that's it, right? Because it's like built into your DNA from the very beginning, from the entrepreneurial story to tennis to what you're doing at work to, I mean, that question was what you like to do when you aren't working, by the way, just as an aside, right? Just as an observation. So yeah, that's definitely something that's built into your DNA for sure, which is freaking amazing. I can't find the question that came from the last guest. So I'm going to ask one that comes to mind that a guest asked previously a while ago that I just find it fascinating and interesting. So, and given that you mentioned the Spartan race, walk-up music. If you have walk-up music, whether it's about to give a presentation, maybe you're about to start a race, about to start a podcast, like as baseball players have walk-up music, what's the song that you're walking up to right now?
Oh, good one. Good one. It definitely could vary by the day, right? Mm-hmm. And I now am into like bringing the kids to the Linfield in our area track. I run sprints, bring the sandbag. They bring their bikes or their scooters. Walk up music, probably like AC/DC. Hell's Bells, probably a good walk up music. But it could be anything. Lot of like DMX, if I'm sprinting, anything, Linkin Park, anything to get me going. Saliva, right? Like it's probably got a lot of energy. Probably got a lot of anger.
I love it.
Just how I work out.
I love it. That's fantastic. It's getting me excited already. Great. So one last question and actually 2 last questions. I'll get you out here. I'll make sure they're quick. What question would you like me to ask my next guest?
Question that I have for you. Mm-hmm. What's the hardest job they've ever done in a non-professional setting?
Hardest job they've ever done in a non-professional setting. It's a good one. It's a really good one.
Right. It's easy to sit in front of our computer, our Zooms, our Teams meetings, right? Like it's even easy to do enterprise travel, jump on a plane, right? Like what's the hardest thing you've ever had to do that's not in this professional corporate setting where Jay and you and I are talking, but that one should get you some fun answers.
Yeah, it's a really good one. Thank you for that. That's fantastic. One last question, which is just simply, how can folks say thank you, reach out, maybe have some questions that I didn't ask, or perhaps even apply for an opportunity to work there and help you build over there at Reveleer.
Yeah, LinkedIn is a great way to get in touch with me. I'm always on LinkedIn. I absolutely get in touch with me. Kyle, Kyle Natichioni, Natichioni at Reveleer.com. Happy to help anyone who's trying to scale their organization, thinking about how to take their sales or growth motion to the next level, or if they're just looking to build out a profile, spitball. Love to talk to anyone.
Fantastic. I'll make sure that I put your contact information there in the show notes as well, your LinkedIn profile at least, and we'll go from there. Kyle Natichioni, very nice to meet you initially in person, and certainly thank you for doing this, joining the Goats of Growth.
Thanks, Jay. Really appreciate the time.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review, and reach out to Kyle if and when you need him. Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.